Okay, Anna, this is a bit of a weird one, but you're just going to have to follow me on this. So imagine, if you will, getting home after a long hot summer's day, going into your fridge and grabbing the most refreshing thing inside, a nice, cold water bottle. Now change your perspective slightly, and imagine getting all cosy on a cold winter's eve, snuggling up under a blanket with what? A lovely hot water bottle. Okay, now, completely unrelated, imagine flying high above the countryside, adoring the beautiful vistas and sheep, in what? A magnificent hot air balloon. Okay, so I don't know why, but these three thoughts just came to me independently in the space of about 30 seconds, and there was a fourth and final gap that I just had to fill in. So we have a cold, refreshing water bottle and a hot air balloon, and these two naturally merge into the completely unrelated but utterly comforting hot water bottle. But somehow also the non-existent cold air balloon? Okay, so I drew this taxonomy graph in MS Paint immediately trying to fill in that obvious gap. This is a classic two-way table, which is just a more stripped-down Venn diagram. But we can't actually make a Venn diagram because some of the variables don't overlap. We either have 3 or 6 options, depending on whether you look at hot and cold as 2 separate sets, or one option. The word will either contain hot or cold, either water or air, and either balloon or bottle. Okay, so you can think of this sort of like 3-bit binary, where each bit of data has 2 possibilities. Of course, in binary, 0 or 1 will be the only option for all 3 spaces, but because each space can only be one of 2 options, the fact that each of the options are different for each bit is functionally the same. The possible number of permutations in binary is 2 raised to the power of however many bits there are. This is why, despite kilo meaning 1,000, kilobyte is 1,024 bytes, because 2 to the 10 is 1,024. My family actually once lost a pub quiz because my dad didn't believe me that a megabyte was 1,024 kilobytes, but I'm still salty about that. Anyway, that tells us that if we want to include all 3 possibilities in each result, we'll have 2 to the 3 results, which is 8. You can in fact draw this as a Venn diagram, but it's not contiguous, and you have to have the conflicting areas not overlap. The Venn diagram does of course introduce such outcomes as water bottle and hot air, but also cold balloon and air bottle, which is of course the core economic foundation of Thneedville, but doesn't concern us because we're looking for specifically 3 variable outcomes. So back to the table, we have 4 of the 8 possible outcomes here, but we can't just add 4 more boxes onto either the columns or the rows, because that doesn't actually add any variables. In order to do that, we must enter the third dimension. Beauties and gentle beauties, I introduce you to the possibility cube, a creation of my own mind, and the closest thing I have to a child, so I'll be expecting my Fields Medal by the end of the week. Okay, so the possibility cube introduces the new axis that we've been looking for, so we finally have our 6 variables, things that are hot, things that are cold, things with air, things with water, and of course balloons and bottles. It was at this point that I realised that this was bigger than me. You start your Friday evenings trying to figure out whether or not a cold air balloon exists, and end it with revolutionising the entire field of data theory. Okay, so let's take a slight tangent. Way back in the middle of the 20th century, we had just figured out that there was some stuff smaller than an atom, and some really smart dudes in some university somewhere were sitting around smoking pipes and wearing tweed, and they were like, hey look, we got all these subatomic particles and how they interact with each other, but there's this big ass gap in the middle of the table. Something probably goes there, right? So they looked for what would probably be there, and they found that there was some stuff that fit. Side note, this is why everyone freaked out when the Higgs boson was discovered back in 2012, because it actually proved the existence of those particles that they had theorised based on the already existing particles way back in like the middle of the 20th century. Okay, so clearly the possibility cube is extremely important to not only data theory but also particle physics. Sure, so let's just go through the things the cube introduces us to. We have hot air balloons, hot water bottles, and cold water bottles, but this scientifically proves the existence of, in no particular order, hot water balloons, hot air bottles, cold water balloons for a summer fun time splash, cold air balloons, and cold air bottles, which I'm pretty sure is what Percy Jackson used to cross the ocean super quickly that one time. Okay, so this is clearly revolutionary for some reason. Look, if you can't tell, I don't have any qualifications in anything, certainly not product development and marketing, but I'm telling you, Don Draper could totally figure out the purpose of a hot air bottle and how to sell one to housewives, and he'd be able to do it after downing 3 glasses of whiskey while beating his wife. The market is wide open.
It's clean, it's simple, and it's tantalizingly incomplete.
Okay, so an interesting use of a cold air balloon to me would be like, okay, so hot air balloons rise because of the temperature of the air inside the balloon is higher than the temperature outside because of the fiery thingy, and it rises because of like convection currents or something. Okay, so we all know hot air rises, but a lesser known property of this is if the fluid inside of the balloon, yes, air is a fluid because this is all fluid dynamics, if the fluid inside of the balloon is colder than the atmosphere the balloon is in, it will sink. This is probably how Cloud City in Empire Strikes Back would work. Maintaining the same temperature as the atmosphere would make it float, I guess, but also the gas comprising the atmosphere of Bespin would have to be extremely thick and also heavy to make sure that the weight of the city isn't counteracted by the thinness of the atmosphere or something, I don't know. Anyway, so if you wanted a controlled descent onto an exoplanet with an extremely hot atmosphere, and you could somehow shield it from the elements, a regulated temperature cold air balloon would allow you to slow your speed depending on the temperature of the air inside. Bezos, call me and we'll work something out. Okay, so it's been like 5 minutes since we even discovered the possibility cube, and we've already cracked both particle physics and space exploration wide open. This honestly awards a massive degree of new ideas, and the best thing is, the Higgs boson teaches us that they are already fundamental to the fabric of the universe. We just have to bring them into existence. CERN has their super collider, I have my possibility cube. Okay, so yes, I've already blown your socks off with the revelation that is hot water balloons to scald your enemies, but put them back on, because I'm about to blow them off again with the fourth dimensional possibility hypercube. Three-dimensional being. I too am a disgusting three-dimensional being, so I can't see it either. Or can I? No, I can't. But I, and you by extension, unfortunately we are members of the same species, we can experience the fourth dimension. Our universe exists in 3D space, in some people's opinions. So we have like up, down, left, right, forward, backward, or X, Y, and Z, but we do experience another dimension, time. I know it doesn't feel like it, but technically we are all travelling through time constantly, and it's changing our perception of the universe because we view it as three-dimensional beings. If you think about how the universe would look to a 4D being, it would be everything all in one go combined into one big 4D shape. Okay, so imagine looking at an image of a cube, and because of your perception, that image is 2D. But as we move the cube through time by animating it, and more accurately, as time passes, the cube is shown to be 3D. When we look at a cube, we see the whole thing because we're 3D beings. You can imagine looking at this image of a cube, a 2D being would constantly be seeing it as a 2D shape, and if the third dimension they travelled through was time, and it acted the same way as fourth dimensional time works for us, on a Monday morning they might see just a square, but then we fast forward to Friday and it's rotated and they see whatever, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's a hexagon, they see a hexagon. You might see a car parked on your street on a Monday, and then on Friday it's gone, and that feels like a 3D thing moving in 3D space, but from the fourth dimension, they are both part of the same shape. In this way, we can change how our fourth dimensional possibility hypercube looks as time passes to simulate viewing it from all angles of a fourth unseeable dimension. Okay, so let's add a fourth variable to our hot cold air water balloon bottle, and let's just call it big small, for example. We can have a big hot air balloon and a small cold water bottle, and also a small hot air balloon and a big cold water bottle. And just like in order to add the axis of balloon bottle to the 2D version, or possibility square, it's just not as cool. Just like we had the axis of balloon bottle to turn the possibility square into the possibility cube, we add the fourth axis of big small to our three-dimensional possibility cube to turn it into a fourth-dimensional possibility hypercube with the 4D angle we're looking at the hypercube from changing as time passes. Okay, yes, that's slightly confusing to look at with all the spinning and changing text, so let's just look at how one of those cubes changes as we move through the fourth dimension. As you can see, this starts off as a small hot air balloon, and as the angle of our perception changes, it becomes a big hot air balloon. This doesn't sound like much, as we've only added one possibility to each of our variables, but this does actually add another axis to our graph. If you think again of this like binary, the number of bits would be 4, so our number of outcomes is 2 to the 4, which is 16. We've effectively doubled our possible outcomes and can now prove that if a big cold water bottle exists, so does a small one. Okay, so this possibility hypercube continues to exist in even higher dimensions, but I have no way to show that because I've run out of dimensions that we experience. 9-dimensional Bezos, call me and we'll work something out. Of course, it's pretty simple to understand at this point that with each higher dimension or variable that we add to the hypercube, we effectively multiply the previous dimension's outcomes by 2. There it is, the possibility cube, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever need to figure out if something could exist but doesn't, just in case Deborah Meaden ambushes you in a lift and you need to think of a business proposal on the spot. Okay, so I realised I didn't write like an ending in my script. I'm recording this after editing the video, and I went back and saw when I first mentioned the concept of this possibility square in my group chat. the message I sent is just, guys, I've just had an epiphany. Hot water bottle, hot air balloon. Cold water bottle, cold air balloon, with 5 question marks. And that was on the 18th of February. It's August. Yeah, obviously I was like finishing uni and stuff. So a lot of that was, not time I was able to spend 100 hours working on a project about whatever this is. But I have been editing this pretty much full time for the past 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah. I've never made anything like this before. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm recording this because I realised that I didn't actually have an ending to whatever that was. So yeah, thank you for watching whatever the fuck this was. Bye bye.